Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate the opportunity. I have 3 school-age girls, and you may have had children or are going to have children that are driving. And in Alabama, my daughter can be driving and driving my car for her driving, and she could get pulled over and get a traffic citation, and I would never know about it. She could pay it, and I would never be aware of it. And so what this bill does is makes it asks the law enforcement officer that pulls a minor over and gives them a traffic citation to attempt to notify the parent. And Mr. Bolton has got an amendment in just a minute to make it where it's an attempt and not mandatory. This became more personal to me. I have 2 high school friends who their son and his girlfriend had a wreck and were both killed. Neither of them were wearing their seat belts, and the parents found out later that TJ had more than one seatbelt ticket, and his parents did not know it and could not correct that, could not do anything before that to try to encourage him to wear his seatbelt. They just didn't know. And so that's what brought this to light. When I got to thinking about it on my own accord, I thought, well, I want to know too if my child is driving and gets a traffic citation. So that's the gist of the bill.
Okay, let's go ahead and get the amendment up and address it, and then we'll see if any committee members have any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. What this amendment will do, it makes a few corrections for spelling and other things, but the main thing that it does is under subsection C, it changes.
What line?
Oh, I'm sorry, under line 15.
All right.
It goes to say that if a minor under 19 years of age is cited for any traffic infraction, the citing agency shall make a reasonable effort to notify the minor's parent and legal guardian. And then down on line 20, on line 47, excuse me, I'm sorry, I was reading my line. The line is actually line 44 in the bill. And also replace line 47 on page 2 of the bill with emancipated by court order or operation of law. Nothing in this subsection shall impose a tort liability upon the citing agency or any officer, employee, or agent of the citing agency.
Members of the committee, have you heard the amendment explained? Any questions on the amendment? If not, I'll entertain a motion to adopt.
I'll entertain that motion.
Motion to adopt by Representative Fiddler. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, now the bill is before us as amended. Is there any questions by any members of the committee on the bill? All right, Representative Pettis.
I was a state trooper for 25 years. I guess my first thing is, how are you going to know who the parents are?
It's very similar to if you pulled over someone who is under 16 driving, you would make an attempt to call their parent, most likely on the side of the road, instead of taking them to jail or taking them somewhere else. And that's all we're asking the law enforcement officer to do, is to make an attempt to contact them. So ask the person that's pulled over for their parent or guardian's information.
Okay, what if I have a 16-year-old female that's married?
If they're legally emancipated, then you don't have that. That's in the amendment that Representative Bolton just brought.
But how are you going to, I mean, are you, I guess you're going to start having to ask a whole bunch more questions. You're going to tie an officer up on the side of the road trying to call?
Yeah, the object of this is not to do that. That's the reason we didn't put, well, originally it said shall contact. That's the reason we took that out. We just want you to make an effort to do it.
Well, that's why I checked with Aaliyah. March 1st last year to March 1st this year, they wrote 12,000 people, 16 to 18 years old. That's 12,000 contacts they're going to have to try to make. Aaliyah, so we're already short of troopers on the road. That's, to me, that's just going to tie them up more paperwork, because somebody's going to have to say, did you do it? You're going to have to document or something. You're going to have something. To me, this is just, I understand what you're doing. I just think being on the road, it's going to be a pain.
I worked with Aaliyah, ACCA, and the league to get the wording the way we've got it. I do understand it's gonna add a phone call, it's gonna add a few minutes, but I mean, as a parent, I want to know if my child is doing something. I want to be able to try to correct my child if something is happening like that, especially if it's habitually.
Yep. So Leah's, you worked with them, so they're not in opposition to the bill, correct?
They're not.
Okay, so Representative Stringer, Bolton, and then Estes.
Yeah, I was just going to say I appreciate the bill. I get what you're trying to do. I'm a parent of 6 kids. I've had one of mine get a ticket and not tell me. And luckily, I caught the letter when it came in the mail and was able to address it. But as a cop of 32 years, I don't think it's going to be terrible to have to make a call. I do it all the time, and trying to help somebody get their stolen car back without having to have it towed and making a victim again. I've done it a bunch of times, and, you know, trying to get a parent to come pick up a kid that's in a bad situation or something. So I applaud you, Bill.
Thank you.
Representative Bolton.
Yes, and although it's not specified in here, I'm assuming it would be acceptable for just to have the dispatch center to contact that parent.
Sure, as long as they're contacted.
Representative
Similar situation, but my boy met me at the back door when I got home when he was barely 16 and had gotten pulled over for doing 48 and a 35 by the funeral home, and was told that I was supposed to call the local law enforcement officer. And luckily, being from a small town, I knew all my officers, and that was their practice, and it worked out extremely well. And I mean, I'm grateful for the officers' time. So I commend you for bringing the bill. I know, never having been a law enforcement officer myself, I can't appreciate the additional time it's going to take, but I know where your heart is, and I appreciate you bringing the bill. And at the appropriate time, I'd like to make a motion for a favorable report.
Okay. That is the motion on the floor. We got a motion for favorable report by Representative Estes. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Bill has a favorable report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, committee.
Yeah, as amended. Thank you, Teresa. All right, that brings us to House Bill 255, Representative Bedsell. You just assumed you were up next, I guess.
I can read the agenda that you posted, so I guess it was an assumption, but pretty logically based. So, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, HB 255 will, and I should start with this, under existing local legislation throughout our state, sheriffs are able to contract for providing service of process. This bill would authorize all sheriffs in our state to do this across the state, and then also has some provision in it that if there is a local act, they're able to continue to operate under their local act, or they may choose to adopt this statewide piece of legislation. I do have an amendment that I'm going to offer to clear up some of the language and concerns that we've been working on over the past few days.
Go ahead and explain the amendment.
Okay, so this will be, first I'll start with line 41 through 42 on page 2. That this portion of it here will specify that this is not a per, once the filing is made, it's a per case $50 that'll be paid, and that's that first amendment that's listed there. The next one, lines 44 through 49, this specifies simply when the fee will be collected. At the time of filing or at the time of adjudication if it's a criminal process. And then down below it says that $5 will be, of this $50 fee will be to the clerk, and then $3 to the district attorney. If you flip over to the next page, replace line 51 on page 2 with the following. And this is simply enumerating that if a filing originates out of another state, that the sheriff may submit a request for payment consistent with the terms of this act. So as if it was a civil process that was done in our state. And then the next, last amendment you'll find there is line 62 on page 3. This puts in some specific language for the sheriffs to transmit or communicate whether they're going to follow their local act that had been already previously passed, or they were going to choose to adopt this statewide act and so follow this bill or this law.
All right, members of the committee, you've heard the explanation on the amendment. Any questions on the amendments?
Make a motion for favorable report on the amendment.
Okay, so we got a motion to adopt the amendment by Representative Fiddler. All in agreement indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed. All right, now the bill's before us as amended. Any questions from any members of the committee?
No.
Representative Bolton,
I have only one, and we discussed this in the line. Let me find these lines where it talks about pre-existing local laws that would be different from this. Is that only applicable to pre-existing laws, or is that going to be okay with any law that's passed here going forward if somebody wants to pass one that's more liberal than this particular section?
Well, if they passed a statewide law, then it would in essence do away with this one. But the language here specific to those local legislative acts, we're going to continue to work to tighten that up. The last thing that anyone wants is the sheriff of any county to be able to do both, the local act and this new statewide act. So we're going to work on some language to tighten that piece of it up to ensure that there has to be a choice made.
Yep. The only thing I was in question about is does the local law have to be pre-existing?
Yeah, this would apply to any pre-existing local law.
Well, what about, I've got a bill coming for Tuscaloosa County that I've been discussing with Randy that will be coming later in this session that is different from this. Is this going to have any kind of impact on that since it's coming after this bill's passage?
let's go ahead, Randy. Give me your name, identify yourself.
I'm Randy Hillman. I represent the Sheriff's Association. Representative, this act doesn't become effective until October 1 of 24. So if your local bill takes effect prior to that, then I think you're good.
Well,
If you
what about in the event that we don't, some reason or other on the calendar, since we're running way behind and the advertising cycle got started late, what if I had to wait till next session to file it or get it passed, and what effects it's going to have on it?
That's probably an OTHNI LSA question, but I promise you I will find the answer.
Yeah,
my judgment is once this kicks in, you would have to, in your local act, you would have to say, notwithstanding this state law, we're going to do the following in Tuscaloosa. But I am not an expert with that, so please, I promise you we'll get you the answer.
Thank you, buddy. I appreciate that.
Representative Wadsworth?
Yeah, some of the concerns I have is the fact that filing fees have just continuously gone up. Like in Alabama, you can pay up to $1,000 to file a civil case. If somebody is basically like an unlawful detainer action, they pay $254, and then they have to pay for each additional defendant, and then hire an attorney, go to court, and then when they go to court, they come back, and if the other side doesn't show up, to get a default judgment, they have to pay another $50 fee, and before it's over with, just to get somebody out of their house, you're going to pay probably $500. But then the civil side, everybody who's got small claims, this adds to their fees when they're not being paid anyway. But that's the concern I have. And like in Mississippi, it's like $161, but in Alabama, you can pay up to $1,000. And that's where my opposition comes into play.
Yeah,
and I think what we need to do is have the budget committees increase the funding for sheriffs, circuit clerks, as opposed to just adding more fees to each one of these cases. Because a lot of these folks that do small claims, they're paying an astronomical amount to do this now. And then if they get a default judgment, they got to pay another $50 fee on top of that. And they're not getting paid for what they're doing. But also, if you have a domestic action, you got to pay. You'll end up paying I think it's what it was. It's basically $297 for a modification, and then you get a default judgment. That's another $50. And a lot of these folks in rural areas, they don't have these funds, to pay that.
Yes, sir. And certainly hear your concerns, and with the numbers and facts you present, I think it's important to the aim and focus of this are those process service that the sheriff has been requested to serve. And so this isn't a broad application in terms of applying to every single filing. It's the ones in which the sheriff has been requested to do the service. So hopefully that does eliminate some of those instances that you were speaking about.
Well, then you pay an outside process server. You pay them up to $100 to do it. And a lot of times up to $150 to do that too.
Yes, sir.
But
sure, I completely understand.
That's concerns I have, and I think it's just, last year, a couple of years ago, we raised the filing fee for corporations, LLCs, and then plus on top of that, there's fees in connection when you make a filing, you have to pay that administrative fee associated with it. I just think it gets to the point, at some point, we've got to start reducing fees as opposed to increasing fees. But we've got to start it in the legislature first.
Fair point.
Okay.
All right, we got a Representative Fiddler.
Okay, so how much is that filing fee today for all our, I mean, do we have a filing fee at all? I mean, processing fee?
Unless you're in a county that has a local legislative act, there's not one. So this would just provide the application for this statewide.
All right. Any more questions? I got a motion for favorable report by Representative Pettis. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Opposed?
Ayes have it. Bill has favorable report.
Thank you.
As amended. Thank you again, Teresa. I'm gonna get it. All right, House Bill 295 is gonna be carry over, have to call it a chair. That moves us to House Bill 314. Representative Travis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and the committee. This bill here, what I have is in reference to the fire chaplains, and currently we have the firefighters tag destination that we have available, but this will just expand that definition, allow fire chaplains to be able to purchase that tag and put it on the card with just a little emma on it, notifying that they're fire chaplains.
Got a motion for favorable report by Representative Bedsall. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Your bill has a favorable report.
Thank you.
Doesn't get any easier than that.
That's the first one.
That was your first bill? All right, congratulations on your first bill. That brings us to House Bill 315. Marquise?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, members. I don't think I need to tell this committee how difficult it is to assist or enforce the law on the side of the road and how dangerous it is. This bill is to increase the fines and penalties on the move over law. A towing company and enterprise asked me to bring this bill before the committee to enforce how difficult of a job y'all have as law enforcement and they have as assisting people. And there is going to be an amendment that Representative Stringer has. Basically is a technical amendment and also clarification of a definition. But if there's any questions, Mr. Chairman, I'll be happy to answer.
Okay, let's get the amendment explained and then we'll see if there's any questions.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Chairman. It's going to be replace line 52 on page 2 with the following. Section 1, Section 32, 5A 58.2. Code of Alabama 1975 is amended to read as following. Replace line 58 on page 3 with the following. Performing and recovering or loading on the roadside or otherwise performing tasks associated with the record service when A.
Members have heard the explanation of the amendment. Is there any questions on the amendment?
Make a motion to accept the amendment.
All right, we got a motion to adopt the amendment by Representative Fiddler. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, the ayes have it. Now the bill's before us as amended. Any questions on the bill? Representative Eastis and Representative Wadsworth.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. More of a comment than a question. I appreciate you bringing the bill, Representative. I think it's a good bill. My only concern is I know traveling up and down 22 and 65 as I do coming back from Marion County here to work every week, I see where it talks about either move over, which is great,
Yes.
or at least slow down to 15 miles an hour. I'm thinking, man, that's a very prudent speed on the interstate highway. If you're doing, just the speed limit itself is 70 and getting down to 15, if there's people on your backside.
Well, that doesn't change. That's already existing law.
15 below the speed limit.
15 below the speed limit. Okay, I'm sorry for my misunderstanding. So thank you.
Yes, sir.
Representative, was it Wadsworth?
Yes, just have a question. Each one of these, it raises the fine
Yes, sir.
by $100, correct?
Great. Yes, sir.
Now, but that's not just the amount that's in this bill. It isn't just the fine and cost.
It's more, and it's also penalties, and it can be criminal penalties if, yes, sir, that's correct.
And so the fines are actually being raised by 100. And then also the court costs, whatever they're at right now, most of the time, fines are not what imposed. It's that has an impact. It's really the court cost, because court costs continues to go up.
Yes, sir.
Because we keep adding more fees, and that's where I'm opposed to it, because of all these continual increase in fees,
Yes, sir.
fines and fees. Okay.
Any other questions from the committee? If not, I'll entertain a motion for favorable report. Motion made by Representative Stringer for favorable report. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Opposed.
Ayes have it. Yeah, bill has a favorable report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, members.
All right, that brings us to our last bill, Senate Bill 89. It's going to be handled by Representative Stringer for Senator Smitherman.
All right, thank you, Chairman. Under existing law, it's unlawful for a person to loiter or remain on a public roadway currently. All this bill is going to do is just add that it would be unlawful for someone to loiter or remain unlawful in an area within 30 feet of an interchange involving a controlled access or limited access highway.
Okay, I believe we have an amendment by Representative Betzel. Go ahead and explain the amendment.
Mr. Chairman, this amendment actually just provides a definition for the term interchange. So we'll replace line 81 on page 30 with the following. Highway. An interchange is defined as a system of interconnecting roadways providing for traffic movement between two or more roadways that do not intersect at grade. And I have a nice little illustration here for the committee if they would like to see.
Any questions by any members on the amendment? Not, I entertain a motion to adopt the amendment by Representative Stringer. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed. Now the bill is before us as amended. Any questions on the bill? I got a motion for favorable report by Representative Pettis. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And the ayes have it. Bill has a favorable report, and I believe as amended, yeah. Thank you again, Teresa. So I believe that, I want to thank the sheriffs for coming out, especially we have an opportunity to help you out. And appreciate you from coming from around the state to be here today. So with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Motion to adjourn by Representative Estes. All in favor indicate by saying aye. All opposed, ayes have it. We are adjourned. Thank you. Oh. Kevin.